Back in January of 2011, 40-year-old Diane Berg lost control of her SUV while driving on I-215 on an overpass. The vehicle went over a guardrail and then down below. Berg died at the scene. Her family claimed bad snow removal by UDOT caused the car to launch over the guardrail.
I went to the door and there were the police with my stake president and his wife. And of course then, you know, it's funny now, I guess, but at the time I was thinking, man, I must be in real trouble if the stake president and the police are here. And they came in and, sorry, my daughter, who was 4 at the time, was home with me. And you know, they gave me the news. They were holding my wife's purse, which was the first inclination that something was terribly, terribly wrong. And they told me that she had passed away in this car accident. It was heart-wrenching. My wife and I had been married 17 years, and so quite a while. We had 3 children during that time, and at the time that she passed, the oldest boy was 11, and then I had a younger boy that was 7, and then my youngest daughter was 4. It wasn't until probably about 6 months after the accident that I began to realize that there was a problem with the state, and they were negligent for the issue. And that came to my awareness because a friend of mine who worked for UDOT told me that the policies and procedures had been broken relative to the snow ramp. And so, you know, and the interesting part of that is that if you're wronged by the state, one only has a 1-year time frame to make a claim against the state. And so at that point, I started searching for attorneys and looking for someone who would take the case, and that was almost impossible. And I'm certain, in fact, I know of 3 other cases very, very similar to my wife's accident where people would go and visit with attorneys, and the attorneys would tell them, you know, we love the merits of your case, but unfortunately because of the government immunity and damage caps, we just can't take the case. It's not in your interest or ours.
So governmental immunity is a protection of governmental employees and their agents that really affords protections for those agencies that we wouldn't find in other sectors of society.
When we think of being injured by government, we think it's a rare thing, but it's not. It's just that we may not have experienced it in our lives yet.
I turned down probably 10 cases a month by telling people that there's immunity. The impact on some of my potential clients or clients of immunity is that they have serious losses, serious injuries, sometimes permanent, sometimes death, you know, and there's no remedy. Now that's wrong.
If you're so unfortunate to be struck by a bus and you become a quadriplegic, you better pray it's a private sector bus and not a school bus or a UTA bus. Because if you have the same injuries from being struck by a bus that is government, you're likely never to be made whole financially. Where is the justice in that? And how can any elected official believe that that is right?
When I was a student at the University of Utah, I conducted research alone, and I registered my original research materials with the United States Copyright Office. I found out that my advisor had locked me out of the lab where my original research materials were stored, and he and others gained illegal access to my research materials and used it in conducting studies and publishing research from my work. I filed a lawsuit against the University of Utah and the individuals that were involved, and to my shock and dismay, as the lawsuit is in progress, the University of Utah was dismissed as a defendant under governmental immunity and 11th Amendment immunity laws. The government promotes these laws that protect individual copyright and intellectual property, and they don't hold themselves to the same standards that they expect others to live by. No matter the verdict that a judge or jury decides, I should be able to have my day in court with the University of Utah.
So in my case, the jury awarded our family $1.3 million, but according to the rules around damage caps, it wouldn't have mattered if they awarded $1.3 trillion. The damage cap at the time was $648,700. And so immediately, without the jury knowing, and only the participants in the case itself knew that that award was going to be dropped to the damage cap at the time.
The caps in the statute refer to the financial limitations on the amount that can be reimbursed for the damages done to citizens by government.
The problem with governmental immunity is it limits the damages. Some people, the pain and suffering they endure is enormous. It's not only unfair but unconstitutional.
After all of the time that was spent on it, after all of the lawyers were paid and everything was done, we ended up in the negative. In the negative, it was hard dollars. I mean, not just the time that I spent, but on the amount of money that was awarded versus what the attorney's fees were, we're actually in the hole still.
This issue is growing in concern because government is growing. Government has grown so much. It's one of the fastest growing employment sectors, so the likelihood that a citizen could come up against harm from a government official has simply grown. And to have those limitations of a citizen being able to seek redress, to seek being made whole when they've been wronged is very, very concerning.
Violations of people's rights should have a remedy. And this statute ensures that many people, hundreds, thousands of people every year don't have a remedy for a wrong done because the government can allegedly do no wrong. It goes back hundreds of years to the king can do no wrong. And that's absurd in today's world. We know that the government can do wrong and does do wrong.
It's pretty scary to know that the government doesn't govern itself consistently and that they provide immunity to individuals and agencies that are fallible just like any other person and agency and can get away with that.
People should care because people should have recourse in power against their own government. And governmental immunity has offset that power to a large degree. Citizens are limited in their ability to find redress against their government. That's a fundamental principle of our country.
Accidents happen all the time, everywhere. Government and its workers are often the cause of those accidents. It could happen to you.
When that damage does occur to either you or a family member, you will be absolutely heartbroken when you see the results that our government has failed us and that our government really doesn't care so much about each one of us. Our government cares about the final bill, and each one of us should be very, very concerned about that.
Government should be required to cover the damage they do, the harm they do to private citizens.